Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Drawclass, July 2021. Thanks for being here. Oh god,
Hello.
which one's my screen? I
Hello.
I hope it's this one. It is! I got it in one. I very possibly could have just shown you my the YouTube Studio streaming screen instead, but I didn't. So we're already off to a
No.
great start. I
Almost
remembered.
did as we say, pulled a Jacob.
Yeah, almost. You wouldn't have been able to see my email, just what it looks like in the YouTube Studio when you're streaming. I'm a bit loud, huh?
Hmm.
Let's fix that. I can be quiet. I'll shut up. You don't need me to talk.
Yeah, you're only teaching. Quiet down.
So a good chunk of this class is just gonna be looking at cooler art than I'm able to make, because I think that's a good way to learn. I think it's good to look at stuff that you want to be able to do that you don't necessarily have all of the tools to do right now, but you can look at it, you can see sort of what they're doing, and use that to inspire future work. This piece, by the way, I'm gonna try and credit every artist that I'm using their works for in this. These, I do not own these. This is a piece by Diego Gisbert Lorenz. Yeah. So look, check if you like any of these pieces. Feel free to check out these artists on your own time. But yeah, there's the thing with fantasy drawing is, of course, it's all made up. So it's not like, life drawing or drawing animals, which I guess would be life drawing. But it's not like something where you can go find a photograph, right? Of something that exists. You can pull from other artists' works, you can pull from media, but ultimately it's make 'em ups, right?
Mhm.
So you're gonna it's, I think, a good idea to look at what other people are doing in the genre, and latch on to the stuff that they're doing that you like, that you want to try and emulate in your work. But yeah, the point is, fantasy, like gamers, can be anything, uh, because it's made up. So there are tropes, there are archetypes, and stuff that you can use to help guide you. But ultimately, the world can be whatever you want. You can have a dude wearing armor with this cool, like, statue on top of his helmet and multicolored feathers, riding on what appears to be a griffin, but with tiger stripes, in flying over a jungle with pyramids with magical rockets elevating them
Love
into the sky.
this.
That's fantasy. That can be
Yeah.
fantasy. It doesn't have to be. But for example, it can be that. It looks like this might be Warhammer. Anytime I see the skull in, like, the rune, I assume it's like a Warhammer piece, because Warhammer has that sort of aesthetic to it.
E.
Um, but yeah, I figure
Yeah.
we've got how many people watching? 18. It's been 5 minutes. That was just my little intro spiel. We can get into it, I guess.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
whatever you want. And
Yeah.
just a reminder, I will be keeping an eye on both the chat and the Discord channel if anyone wants me to save any questions for Nathan.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. And Jamie is linking the artists that I mentioned. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank
On
you.
top of that. Very good. All right. So, So here's some stuff to consider. We can start by talking about sort of the costuming of characters, because that's sort of how you're identifying. If you're just doing character art, if you're not doing entire scenes, if you're just drawing a character and you want to indicate that this character exists in a fantasy world, there are different sort of levers you can pull, different things you can include to clue the audience in on what you're trying to convey. So you're sort of conveying two things with your costuming of your characters, which is the setting that they exist in, what sort of like historical or media influences you're pulling from. Is this like a Norse inspired world? Is this a Middle Earth inspired world? Is it a fantasy world that exists sort of parallel to the modern world? These are things that you can indicate in sort of what your characters are wearing. And of course, what's fun about fantasy is it doesn't have to just be any one of those. You can have a world where there are all sorts of different disparate influences that all converge. You can have like samurais and Vikings and pirates all living in the same world, and that's fun and cool because it's fantasy. And that sort of ties in with genre. Like what type of fantasy is this? Is this like a fairy tale fantasy? Is it a dark, gritty horror fantasy like Diablo? Is it or Dark Souls, or is it sort of like a goofy, silly fantasy like
Yep.
like like sort of,
Kingdom
I mean,
Hearts.
like Kingdom Hearts or Adventure Time. I feel like Adventure Time falls under the fantasy umbrella, even though it's I technically set spoilers in post-apocalyptic future, but it the world, I don't know. I feel like there are some people who are sticklers for like this is sci-fi versus this is fantasy. I think if it's made up and
Yeah.
stuff that's happening in it is like not stuff you see in every day, then it can be fantasy. It can be like future punk fantasy, but it's still fantasy. And then the sort of mood and vibe, which again, these are not like discrete categories, but just sort of things to be considering uh when you're costuming your character. Like what sort of, again, like the genre can be like heroic fantasy set in the time of like when gods and men interact with each other, sort of mythic influences. But the mood can be, you can have sort of like a cool just hot people hanging out kind of vibe like you got in Hades, or you can have more of like a I don't know. You can have, it can be scarier. It can be lighter or heavier depending on sort of how you costume your characters. And then the character itself, as it exists in the world, what are you saying about the character itself? There are certainly like a lot of fantasy archetypes, like most notably the ones that you find in D&D, just like character classes. They're, are they heavily armored? Are they lightly armored? Are they sneaky? Are they do they cast spells? Are they is their armor like purely functional, or is it more ornate? You can learn a lot about, or you can say a lot about what your character does with how they're dressed, what they're wearing, what they're wielding. The power level of the character as well is something you can indicate. This is something that's definitely popular in a lot of fantasy video games, where like you get, as you level up, the armor you get is bigger and more elaborate. And so you can, if you're drawing a character and you want to indicate that like this character is like very strong, give him some real ostentatious armor. You can be sort of a roguelike character but still have like, blades covering your whole body, or all sorts of, there are lots of different ways you can go about that. I have some examples we can get into. And then of course the story that your character is on, because fantasy is it's a genre of storytelling, and when you're drawing a character, it can be helpful to think about what is this character's story. You don't have to spell everything out, but like, do they have scars? Is their armor damaged? Is it sparkling clean? Is it covered in blood? Is it covered in dirt? Is it got holes in it? Is the armor like made from the bones of some monster that they've defeated? Like, this is all stuff to consider. These are all things you can convey in a character design if you take a moment to consider and think about it. So yeah, these are just, I just wrote down some thoughts. Again, these are all like not super discreet, but like just sort of things to consider as you're conceptualizing your art. So
Yeah.
we've got this lovely illustration from Britannica, which is just some historical armor, which I think is a good sort of base to start with before getting into the more wild style that fantasy armor can get. Because the cool thing about fantasy armor is, of course, you don't have to consider like actual human physical limitations, right? Like, the heaviest looking armor is definitely going to be like around here, but at a certain point, you're not going to have much mobility in real life if you're so encumbered by a bunch of pieces of heavy metal. But like, that's not an issue if you're in a fantasy world where your characters have supernatural strength, and so they can be wearing shoulder pads that are as big as their chest, because it looks cool. Which is a fun thing about doing fantasy designs is making stuff that would be impractical in real life, but still looks cool. But yeah, like, these are just like different sorts of designs to think about when you think about armor. Like, there's no just like one armor, right? Like, you have this sort of just sort of like vest sort of look, exposed arms, vest, little skirt, exposed legs, boots. Like, that's a fun look. I really like the just full body chainmail look as well. Just like the little head peeking out. I think that can be a fun thing. And again, you can sort of combine that. I guess this kind of combines the chainmail and the and like plate pieces, but like, if this was like a fantasy set, you could have the chainmail, and then like the shoulders are way bigger, and you can accentuate different pieces, but like, it's
Can stylize.
you can
it.
stylize. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I drew right on the layer.
Hell yeah.
I drew right on the layer. It's too late. This is there forever. This guy's got a red vest now forever.
Yeah, you're rewriting history.
Yeah. Like that. And then you can think about stuff like tabards, or wearing stuff over armor as well. So yeah, like, this is just like a historical, if you want to come approach it from like what sort of armor did people actually wear, and then expand out from there, something to consider. But of course, we can also pull from media. Dark Souls has a great array of different armor in varying degrees of complexity. Of course, you have obligatory no armor bikini look, which put your dudes in that. Why not?
Yeah. It's cute.
It's cute. But yeah, like, you have sort of this armor kind of looks similar to some of the more historical stuff, but then you get this like crazy, intricate, detailed stuff. You know, lots of spikes and edges. You got just, you know, tall helmet, got armor with a big hole in the middle. Just sort of cool uses of cloaks and cloth draped over in different ways to indicate different stuff. You can also look at, I've got let's see, Game of Thrones has some great armor. If you again want to look at if you're interested in pulling from sort of life examples rather than other artists, you know, looking at the way costume armor sits on people. You've got, you know, this is all the same world, right? This, you know, going back to our bullet points, you know, the genre is the same because it's the same world, but you have all of these different looks. You have, you know, you've got the armor that they wear in the North, which is very functional, not particularly ornate, but it does have this this fur bit to it to indicate, you know, it's cold where they live, and they have access to these furs, which they include in their armor. Whereas like the Lannisters, their armor is painted. It's got the red, it's got the gold, it's got these like lion bits on the shoulder. You know, it's decorated, and similarly with this sort of Kingsguard armor, it's not painted the same colors. It doesn't have these like Lannister sort of ribbing, but it still has this. It's got designs on it, and then, you know, you have Sir Laura, the House Tyrell, which is again like one of the wealthier houses, not painted, but very delicate patterning on this one. You know, it's a little bit different. You know, this is sort of in your face red and gold like money, but this is, you know, we're interested in artistry here. You know, we're you know, what are we saying with this armor versus this armor versus, you know, this armor, which is after spoilers, after Cersei becomes the queen of King's Landing, of the Seven Kingdoms. She gets her own Queensguard armor, which is this like black and silver, very sort of like face fully hidden. You know, this is a villain's armor. You know, like you're conveying a lot with these different ones. This dude is named the Blackfish, and so he's wearing just black scale armor, right? Like that's his look. You know, you're telling a lot about these characters just by how they're costumed. You know, these characters come from warmer climates. You know, these guys, they've got the sort of, it looks influenced by that sort of Greek historical armor where the shoulders are exposed. They've got the round shields and the spears. You know, their chests are protected, but they're more interested in sort of mobility. Again, very purely functional, not overly protective. And then these guys are they're it's not even, you know, I don't know what material this is. This is just leather armor. Again, more interested in mobility, and again, the light warm weather. You want to be able to not, you know, sweat to death in your armor when you're fighting, ideally. So yeah, these are, you know, all sorts of different armor, different directions you can go.
Because it reflects so much about the characters, but in a way it's also just like world building for the setting itself, because
right.
You know, the way people dress and, you know, what they use as armors and weapons also reflects the setting. You know, the cultures that they come from, because it's all kind of based on real human history,
Right.
ain't it?
Yeah, exactly. They made like a vertical Europe that goes
Yeah.
more, it goes more warm. Uh so like the north part feels more sort of traditional medieval, and then as you get more towards like the middle part, you have a sort of this, like, I don't know, Middle Eastern influence on sort of the aesthetic. It's cool. It's like it's got its own, and then you have, of course, like the eastern continent, which has a different look entirely, and then the south, which is the south of Westeros, which is also its own sort of culture as well. So yeah, like, you can have a world with, just because it's fantasy world doesn't mean it's homogenous in terms of culture and like wealth and aesthetics, and so you can consider that when you're designing your characters in the world. What was I? We talked about archetypes. Here's just this is the art that's on the Dungeon Master's screen for 5th edition, which I actually have.
Yes, flex on me.
This is it's this. It's this, which
It's that.
and oversight by the Dungeons and Dragons website, because I could not find the name of the artist who made this, because I looked it up, and you can purchase this, and in the product details I could not find the name of the artist who made this. But
Sure, it's out there somewhere.
again, here's some great just like archetype costuming here, right? For like a typical fantasy party, you have what looks like a rogue who's just wearing a cloak and some bracers, wielding a short sword. You've got ranger, hunter, arcane archer type character here, bow and arrow, lightly armored. You've got the leather gloves. You've got what appears to be sort of leather armor, a cloak, and leather boots, and some pretty comfy looking pants. Again, more, they're interested in attacking from a distance. They're not going to be as heavily armored. They're more interested in mobility. You've got this spellcaster here, which not even necessarily wearing armor, but again, their clothing is indicative of, they look like to be pretty well off. This is some pretty nicely styled clothing. This is an elf. You got the pointy ears, which, elves tend to live longer than humans, so they've had more time to accumulate wealth, and they're probably one of them fancy mage elves that's got fancy robes and like that. And then similarly here we've got this looks like a dwarf. I don't know, either fighter or cleric, but heavily armored and wearing this armor is covered in gems. Like this is someone who cares about both like being protected and also looking right. Which again, like that's sort of a fantasy trope for dwarves, is they live underground. They love craftsmanship and using the fine materials they dig up in the mines and incorporating that into their armor and clothing. And so again, like you sort of have elf and dwarf right next to each other. You've got these very sort of like more natural shapes and lines here, very sort of delicate and intricate. And here you have like craftsmanship, but it's more I don't know, thick. That is, it's like chonkier, it's intricate, but it's very sort of rigid. And then these gems are sort of the only round shapes. I don't know. I guess there's some rounded bits.
Jamie says they found the artist.
Wow, way to go, Jamie.
As expected.
Yeah, blocky. It's, you know, they're chonky, sort of like dwarves. And then you have this sort of barbarian type back here. He's got, again, not necessarily even wearing armor, but he's got these like leather straps on. He's got a big fur cloak, which indicates he's probably from somewhere that's cold. And, you know, he's got the fur lining on his bracers. He's got the big two-handed weapon, big beard. So yeah, like these are sort of what we're talking about with like archetypes, right? Like I don't know these characters' names. I don't know anything about them, but like I have an idea of like who they are, what they do, at least in terms of like the context of a fantasy adventure. You know, they've all come together to work to fight this dragon. Yeah, like that's, you know, we know our fantasy tropes here, but this is sort of like a really good, you know, it's what there's a reason why they put this on the Dungeon Master's screen. It's, you know, this is fantasy adventure. This is that D&D style fantasy archetyping.
Quintessential.
Here's some more archetypes. This is again Dark Souls, which, you know, has slightly different archetypes, but again, like you've got your soldier, warrior, sorcerer, temple knight, dual swordsman, hunter. Again, like, you know, you've got these guys are more lightly armored, more focused on mobility. You've got the classic, the rogue's got to have a hood on. That's just like that's the fantasy trope. If you got a rogue, they've got a cloak with a hood usually. And sort of this sort of long, again, like it's very similar. It's very similar to this sort of look, a little bit more stylized, a little bit darker. Again, Dark Souls is a darker fantasy. I don't. What's this? Who's this?
Hello?
A little cat on this guy's shoulder.
Little meow meow.
I didn't notice that when I got this image. But yeah, so you've got, you know, different degrees of heavy armor. Like these all look like pretty heavily armored, but this one is, again, it's sort of heavy armor with this more sort of cloaky, fabricy look to it that indicates, you know, possibly, you know, temple knight, religion, maybe some spells, whereas these guys look more just like they're going to be hitting stuff. This guy seems to be a little bit more, it's more just like practical armor, whereas this is just like big, you know, this is more mobility perhaps than this. I'm not super familiar with Dark Souls gameplay, but again, like you see these two guys, like they're both gonna hit you with something, but like the way they hit you is going to be a little different. You know, more of this guy's face is covered. He's more, it seems like, more interested in sort of the top half, whereas this guy's got sort of the knee pads and the boots. And then Sorcerer, again, not really armor, but just sort of cloaky, and again, not to, you know, compare this sort of spellcaster look with the spellcaster here. Like this one is much more sort of, this feels more self-taught. I don't know if they went to mage school. This character looks like they went to mage school and graduated top of their class, you know?
Nerd.
So like even among archetypes, there are different sort of ways you can convey their backstory with what they're wearing. And then this one I accidentally clicked on, but this is sort of a good indication of like power level as indicated by armor, right? Like these are all sort of sneaky archer character, but you know, this is
more
them at the
and more.
Yeah, they just get more stuff, right? It's still it still feels right, like it still goes with sort of the aesthetic, right? These again, like they get sort of this blade look on the shoulder, like they're wearing heavier armor, but it's very segmented. So like we're still thinking about mobility, and again, like this, if a real human were to wear this, I don't think they'd have great mobility. But it's a fantasy world, so like, you know, if you're strong enough, if you're at this level, you know, you're this good of a, I think this is a Diablo demon hunter character.
It looks like a Diablo.
So you know, you're at this level in this fantasy world. Yeah, like you're wearing, this is still lighter armor than what like the paladin or whatever the paladin equivalent is in Diablo. Is it called paladin? Is it Templar? I don't know. But yeah, like it's bigger, but it's still it's got this like roguish look. She's got the face covering, you know, she's got, now that she's got a helmet on, oh, I can move us for a sec and I'll move us back. But she's got this helmet now with the horns, so like, okay, well, she doesn't have the hood anymore, but we can give her this this scarf, make the scarf bigger and more billowy. And also love an asymmetrical design. So,
it also just, you know, as she becomes more powerful, it's obscuring more of like the, for lack of a better way of explaining it, her like human features.
Right.
So she looks more monstery, and that's why they cover the face.
Yeah.
To show that she is above other people.
Her eyes start glowing here. You know, her quiver gets bigger. Just like all sorts of different ways you can indicate like how strong of a character you're trying to make. And again, you don't have to go this detailed. I never go this detailed in a piece, but it's just something to think about, right? Like we're just, right now we are just looking. We're just looking. We're taking it all in
with our eyes. Respectfully.
'cause I think that like getting inspired before hopping into a fantasy piece, or like a piece that's like purely from your imagination, is like a good practice in general. Because again, like you're not working directly from reference. You're trying to sort of build in your mind this sort of library of ideas, and like you'll just naturally, like, different aspects of the design will stand out to different people. But like I love the hood and big shoulders look. Like I think that's cool. It doesn't, it may not be practical, but I think it looks cool. You know, I'll probably use that in a character design at some point, you know? So like that. And then you can also think about stylization. Again, that sort of falls into that setting thing about like sort of mood and vibe, right? Like you can have sort of similar genre worlds, but like the way that you communicate through, you know, your character design, your, you know, the sort of shapes you use, the lines you use can sort of add mood. You know, you can add, I think these are some characters by the artist Sam Bosma. If you go to his portfolio website, he has a sketchbook with a bunch of like really cool character designs. And like, again, like this is like, you can sort of get these tropes, right? These archetypes, but they feel very different. They feel like a lot more whimsical than the Diablo art, for example, right? Like these got these sort of, you know, this line style which is very thin and sort of loose, and then these characters which again have a lot of detailing on them, but they're sort of like long. This, you know, you got this sort of long knobbly kneed guy, you've got this sort of wide stance guy with the peg leg. This guy just looks sad. But like, you know, you get a sense, this, you know, this guy, he's indicating this is like a veteran. He's got so many medals on his person. He's got this big sort of, I don't know if this is supposed to be fur or feathers or whatever, but like and I love these sort of like runes on the shield. Like, I don't know what material this is supposed to be, some sort of like fantasy metal that's been forged in some ritualistic way. I don't know. Like we're getting a lot of information though. Like it's lights are going off in the brain looking at this. You're getting, you're just thinking about like what kind of world do these guys live in? It might be a little different than your just like typical fantasy world, but it's probably it's still fantasy. This is you're not running into these guys on the street. So yeah, I think like looking at different art styles can be really helpful as well.
Oh, can I propose an example?
Yeah, absolutely.
The newest She-Ra, Princess of Power, because that's like purely a fantasy setting, but a lot of the fashion is like very modern.
Yes.
So I think that gives it sort of that like cool teen vibe.
Yeah,
for lack of a better way of putting it.
Cool teen
Oh
fantasy.
wait, was that on your examples?
No, I just
oh
Googled
shit
it real quick. You said it, so I pulled it up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
and Karina, anytime you got an idea for
I did it. I had one.
For something, just let me know and I'll Google it real quick and plop it in.
Yeah. But
yeah.
I feel like especially in this image, like Scorpia, like this is a very modern cut of clothing. Like
yeah.
A lot of fantasy has kind of, like that old timey, like Eurocentric kind of take, like medieval style type stuff in a way. Like that's kind of like classic fantasy in terms of like Western ideals. But, with these are like really modern styles. So it does. So even though it's kind of the same sort of idea and setting in a way, it's a much more like fresh vibe,
Right. And again, like She-Ra is it sort of crosses that bridge between fantasy and sci-fi because like the horde is like from space, like there's space travel involved, and like it's unclear when in time in like the history of the world stuff takes place. So
but it all like works perfectly together in the setting of the story itself.
Exactly.
So
like
that's just another thing to consider.
When taken in together, all of the designs still work together. And again, you don't have to be overly complicated with your designs. Like
you can just do something because it looks cool.
Like Bo, I love Bo's design. He's got the again, he's got the exposed arms, exposed midriff. He's he is that archer archetype. It still fits with that archetype. He's dressed.
It's a very modern. It's a very like.
But it's clean. It's sleek.
Current day take on like that archetype, and I think that's so cool, and it works super well.
Yeah, it works really well. It's a great example.
Yeah.
If you think of any others, let me know. I'll pull them up. I'll grab them on screen.
Anytime, Nathan. Keep going.
Another example of like more simplified style. I really like the design of Shovel Knight. I think like if you want to just draw like an example of how to simply draw plate armor, Shovel Knight is a great example. You got chest, shoulders, gauntlet or bracers, and then like this sort of like, I don't know, turtle shell looking like groin covering and then hip covering.
Odd piece.
It's just like everything's so nicely segmented. It's all so clear. Like again, like there are lots of indie video games that do the fantasy genre that are able to convey a lot of information very simply and cleanly, and I think you can look at those and use that to influence your art as well. Let's see, what else do we have? One of my favorite D&D artists is Wayne Reynolds. He did a lot of the art in 3rd and 4th edition. I think he did almost all the art for 4th edition, but he has this very sort of like sharp style, which I really like. And again, like this party, again, you have archetypes, but they're maybe not the same as the previous one. We've got this sort of goblin looks like a rogue or maybe an artificer, someone who uses a lot of like gizmos and gadgets. His armor is very like patchwork, and he's laden with a lot of just like items. He's holding a bomb and like a goggles, and he's got this sort of crude knife that he's holding, and then just sort of sandals. Sort of, and then you've got this looks like a monk character, again, no armor, but just very a lot of flowy bits, ribbony bits, and then this very ornate sword. You've got this looks like a paladin or fighter, shield with a insignia on it, shield with a sword on it. That's pretty fun. Heavy armor, shining armor. This is a the color of the armor and the way it's styled sort of indicates that this is probably some sort of, that's why I said paladin before fighter. It just looks like that knight in shining armor archetype, and then this appears to be some sort of spellcaster, again. I think different from that elf wizard. This could be, I don't know, sorcerer or warlock. Or if this is Pathfinder, I don't know what all the different classes are in Pathfinder, but again, it's this sort of like spellcaster, but they seem like kind of punk. I don't know how else to describe it, like sort of punk spellcaster with like, they got the face markings, and they've got this sort of layered costume on, and the red, the red magic. Red can mean a lot of different things in art, but it sort of seems like maybe blood magic, maybe sort of some sort of chaos magic. I don't know, but like it's like you got this sort of ragtag group of heroes here, which I think is cool. A thing that he does that I really like is the way he combines forearm and wrist. Like it's just this sort of chonk bit, which I think is just a cool shortcut you can take when you're costuming your characters. And then we can also sort of get into the more monstrous type creatures as well. Again, like, in fantasy, we've talked about sort of the Tolkien fantasy races, right? Like elves and dwarves, but you can have all sorts of creatures and humanoid-esque creatures. You got like Snake Guy, which again, like the whole way he's posed and the way the costume is on him, like this is Snake Guy, like you can make the whole Snai. And you got these, like, I don't know what these guys are. Look like zombie Targier guys. And they're very sort of minimally clothed, but that's to indicate that that's not the source of their strength, is not their armor. They're just there's a lot of them, and you're in their zone, and you got to get away because they're gonna get you. You've got these sort of more hulking figure here. This could be, I don't know if it's a troll or a ogre or what, but like, again, like, and you could armor this guy up also. You can put some stuff on him, but again, you'd probably want to consider like what you're trying. It might be if you want to just sort of play into the archetype of like a monstrous creature, you can give it some very sort of like tattered and like jagged pieces of armor, right? Mm-hmm. Use a lot of straight lines, and it can be in sort of like patchwork. Maybe it wasn't necessarily made by the best craftsman, or maybe the craftsman who made it isn't used to making armor for this particular body type. Give him like a helmet that just covers like this bit, little spike on top. I don't know. Like you can have fun with it, but then it also might be fun to go like, this is a troll who wants to do good in the world, so you give him like that classic sort of like paladin look, this knight in shining armor, and all of a sudden it changes the whole vibe, where it's like, oh, this guy, maybe he's not so bad, maybe he's trying. Give him like a cape, right?
There you go.
His armor's gleaming, make it real shiny. I don't know, like these are just like things to consider when doing character design. And then of course, like we can talk about like monster, not just humanoid monsters, but like monsters like this dragon or this hydra, which hydra of course is like from Greek mythology. Dragons appear in all sorts of different mythologies. This looks like a ghost dragon maybe. And we can refer back to my animal drawing class about fantasy creatures are just different bits of animals smushed together and made bigger and scarier. Give them spikes, give them glowing eyes, give them big teeth. We can if we want to spend some time later in the class designing our own fantasy creatures, we can. Like I'm just trying to get through like the examples I have prepared, and then I figured we could open it up to questions, or
keep it rolling.
Yeah, if people have their own
I'm keeping an eye out,
their own fantasy character or creature designs they want me to look at, I'm happy to do that as well. I basically just wanted to show you some examples of cool art, and sort of, because that, like, I don't have like a formula when I go to draw armor or a creature. There's not like a set formula that I'm following, because again, fantasy can be anything. It's just sort of like, what am I trying to convey? What about this character? What's sort of the mood I'm trying to convey? And so like having examples that are like effective that I can pull from is, I think, helpful. And so here's one more. This is Johan Grineer. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Johan Grineer. This is some more Warhammer art. I think like Warhammer is very good at like indicating, because they've got so many discrete factions, and like you've got this clash between the sort of this blue and gold faction, the Marines, and then this red and gold chaos faction. And then you have these undead dudes over here, this sort of monstrous vampire bat, and then this orc who, again, he's not wearing armor, but he's covered in skulls, body paint, spikes. Like these guys, it's shirts versus skins, right? You've got these guys are not wearing shirts, but they are covering their faces, which I think that's certainly a look. It's not practical, but it is definitely, like, from an intimidation standpoint, a look. You've got this, like, I don't even know what this creature is. It's like a dragon horse that's got this, like, lion collar on. This dude with, like, the huge, like, you've got the, again, like Greek hoplite inspired mohawk thing, but it's way bigger, and it's got these lightning bolts. The face mask is like fully sculpted to look like a face over their face, which is, I think, a cool look. Like there's so much going on here, and it's so effective. Like you have such an idea of like who each of these factions are, what they're, it's what this world is like. It's just like brutal, violent fantasy type zone. Some really great posing as well. I wasn't, I don't think we're gonna necessarily get into posing much in this class, because that's not necessarily my forte, but like it's just something to consider as well. Like this is this super open, just like come at me, bro, versus the riding pose. I don't know. There's a lot going on, a lot of cool designs, a lot to consider. I think that's all the examples I had.
Yeah.
I had ready, and then I just have this like stick dude that I figured we could do some like example. We could do some like example costuming on stick dude.
Yeah.
So like I don't know if you guys want to like come up with, you use some of the stuff we talked about, like setting, genre, archetypes, power level. Like give me some, and we can sort of talk through how I would go about designing the costume for such a character.
Yeah. Let's let chat catch up real quick. I will add on because I saw it being said in chat, so I do want it to, because I agree, and I do want to make sure it's also in the video. I feel like when it comes to fantasy and stuff, it does depend a lot about what culture you're pulling from, be it your own experience
For
or
sure.
just your intent, because again, a lot of this is kind of like that Eurocentric medieval type
Yes,
fantasy,
definitely is what
and
I'm most familiar with. But
yeah, so yeah, just because it is helpful, because if you're pulling like from like different cultures, like why does it look that way? Well, it depends on this culture, this this area, what materials and resources they had, etc.
yeah,
So yeah,
definitely.
there is like most things in art and drawing and character design, there is research, because a lot of it you'll be pulling from
Yeah,
real knowledge.
definitely. And yeah, like if you're pulling specifically from like a culture that you're not as familiar with, definitely take the time to do the research, so you're not doing something.
Yeah.
I say this as so like I think I had someone reached out to me and told me that like anytime I draw like a robe, like when I drew David's character in the David episode as the demon slayer, like I had the kimono folded the wrong way, which meant that he was dead. So like that's something to think about, right? Like, you can take more care in what you're doing.
Yeah. And I mean, the same goes to like fantasy settings and fantasy monsters, because like I'm sure Snake Guy comes from some, like, it has some cultural roots somewhere. Who knows? Every country, every group has like different mythologies, and some of them are real wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, just putting that out there
Yeah,
too.
you can, definitely definitely do the research, or if someone tells you something, learn from it.
Got some awesome chat suggestions. Any catch your fancy,
Let's
sir?
see. I say cold setting. What about a rogue that uses a large scarf to hide their face? So okay, like a rogue, a cold rogue.
Cold rogue.
Cold rogue. So I love I what I really like is this sort of like this shape in designs, like this sort of draped over. There's sort of two routes you can go with shoulders, I feel like, in fantasy, is like big shoulder, or you can do this sort of draped over look. Oh. Okay. Okay, Photoshop.
Let's go.
So yeah, we can have the scarf sort of come up over the face a little bit, and then wrap around like this, and maybe go off in this direction. sort of this sort of look here. And then if we're not doing a hood, that means that leaves us open for like maybe sort of like a head wrapping instead. And like, we can have like anime hair if we want. I don't know. I like to give my characters pointy ears until told otherwise when it's fantasy.
I like that.
Yeah. Sort of like this maybe. And then again, like I really like that Wayne Reynolds style of just like big sort of chonkin glove / bracer bit.
It does eliminate the need to do too much hand figuring out, and I do like that.
And again, we can do, since it's cold, we can do sort of like a fur lining here, like this. And then again, like a technique that I think is this is kind of a cheat that I do sometimes, is like big extremities, little in between zones.
Yeah.
So like, we get these big sort of boots and gloves, and again we can do the fur lining. And then since it's a rogue, like this bit can just be, it can be leather, it could be wrapped, if we want to add, keep this sort of like wrapped up aesthetic going, we can do it like that. And then I don't know, there are different ways we can go. We can do this sort of like ribbed like layered leather sort of look, that's sort of like this. Is one way to do it. We could also do, I like the sort of like crop top look, where it's like we've got this maybe sort of like cloth, sort of heavier cloth, that
cold weather crop top,
and then it's still like leather underneath. So it's like this is maybe fur and a little bit puffier, and it's just like this bit, and then we've got, sort of like maybe like a sash that goes around here. It's a little asymmetrical, something like that. Let's see how that looks.
Oh.
Yeah, you can just sort of add these little, like, I like to do, again, for like fur bits, like just sort of adding like errant strings or whatever, like things that indicate that it's like wrapped more tightly around. Yeah, so you get sort of like a sense of who this character is. You give him like a couple of blades. Like, this is a rogue.
Ooh.
This is a rogue. We've got these like, these little fur bits that indicate cold weather. And yeah, so that's like an example of like taking some of the stuff we saw earlier. I'll keep fiddling with it. We can do like like this sort of thing. This is like just adding, like, if we want to make it.
I'll toss a thing.
Okay, yeah.
Cold weather should probably have something covering the ears. Those get cold.
That's true. So maybe, yeah, maybe the head wrap comes all the way over like this, and it's just like we see the eyes like peeking out.
Yeah.
Like that. But I do like having the hair visible, because we specifically said no hood. A hoodless rogue. You can do it. It's possible. Yeah. I don't know. This is a character, right?
There it is.
And it doesn't even
I
need
like
to,
them.
yeah, you can sort of, these bits don't, you can go like this, you can darken them in, make it, like that instead. Like, there's a lot of different ways you could approach this, but like, I think this is fun. This is cool, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we just sort of took little bits and pieces from all the different stuff we were looking at and gave it our own sort of flair. And then like, let's say this character levels up. Like, what what do we
More
do?
stuff.
We give him more stuff.
Give him pauldrons.
Give him pauldrons. Yeah, let's
Why are
maybe
pauldrons such a shortcut to like.
I don't know, but it just so maybe now the scarf, he still has the scarf, but now it like sort of tucks in, and we've got these like,
Yeah,
I don't know, we got to give him rogue pauldrons. So like he's in.
Here's some homework. Research the history of pauldrons to find out what's the deal with them and why do they indicate such power so easily visually.
I don't know, something about shoulders. But yeah, I think, since it's cold weather, right? Like maybe we can get sort of like a tusky sort of look here.
Or like antlers.
Antlers could also work. Yeah, we could do antlers. Maybe one side is, I love an asymmetrical. You go tusk on one side, antler on the other. This is sort of like a
It's wild.
This is sort of a wild character.
Yeah.
Right?
Someone of nature.
And then maybe, this we can add we got so it's more sort of coming down in the middle here. And then I don't know, I like these sort of sharp maybe he graduates from crop top and now it's like more of like a sharp this sort of shape in the armor. Just sort of pointing down. Again, we can have just sort of like spikes.
Yeah,
like,
stuff.
Some stuff draped around on there. And
It's just something about tacking stuff onto something that just makes them look stronger.
Yeah, give them some spikes.
Yeah.
Right? Like nothing.
I guess one implication is that if these are tusks or antler spikes, then they've killed a lot.
Yeah. they've done some hunting. Maybe
they've done a lot of hunting.
Maybe we even put like some sort of like skull up top, right? Like you can give it like a that rogue we were looking at before. Like maybe it's maybe they've got this like sort of skull helmet now.
Oh,
Skelmet. Like this.
Oh my.
Right, like and you can end up over designing and then deciding to scale it back, but like these are just examples of like
yeah, we're just messing around here.
The mid area is like something that I struggle with a lot of the time.
I feel like with armor it's really hard because it's just like codpiece, no codpiece.
You can do this sort of thing.
Yeah.
This is a the sort of, it's like dress, codpiece, or some sort of like sash, or just give them pants, right?
Yeah.
Like,
there's only one thing to do if you don't want to draw attention to the crotch, and it's pants. I'm sorry. That's why we wear it today.
So yeah, like this is not perfect. Just this is sort of a quick design. You don't have to.
Yeah.
The nice thing is like typically with your character designs, you're going to be doing them. You'll have more time to think about them and ideate. But like if you're just trying to get something down on the page, you can just sort of add bits and boops until it looks too crazy, and then be like, okay, actually no, we don't need all that.
Given that you did this so quickly and it is just like a lot of symbols, very easy to read character, you nailed it.
Oh, the knives have to get bigger too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's gonna be like, yeah, some real brutal looking stuff. But yeah, like using a lot of angles, a lot of like spikies, because this is a rogue, and rogues do lots of like sort of puncture, stabby type damage. Whereas, I don't know, if it were, say, like a more, brawler type character, I might do more
fighter, fists only.
Yeah, might do more just sort of like rock type shapes.
Rock type.
rock types. You know, you got these sort of like more sort of squared off sort of look. And like, yeah, that's the other thing is like you can make your characters like very wide if you want, or like make the armor very wide, you know? Like it doesn't have to you can mess with proportions in fantasy cuz like you have like fantasy races or ancestries that like have different proportions, but also just like fantasy people can be, you can have sort of a wider array of you know, wider array of body types.
Chunk.
But also people just have like different body types anyway, so that doesn't even need to be fantasy. You can just have, but like
that's real.
That's just real. But like, yeah, you can use the armor to like make a body even like thicker, right? Like you don't need to use the stick. You don't need to use stick dude. This is like stick dude become thick dude. sort of look. I don't know. Again, this is very similar to that Shovel Knight design we were looking at before, because it's fresh on the brain, but it's a good sort of way.
If you want, so good at laying out armor.
If you wanna just like, it's very much just like sort of anatomy. It's just like do the anatomy, pick the parts of the anatomy you want to indicate more, and make the armor for that part bigger. So you know you can do. I guess in terms of just
putting it out there, it's just where there is movement,
there should be a break of some sort. So yeah, you can do it this way where like I've indicated,
never think about that.
I've indicated like the joints, but like you could also do it this way where like you don't indicate the joints, but you just like, you know, like how I did with the rogue, where it's just this ways instead. I'm sure there are like actual terms for all these like armor pieces, and like I just don't know them. But it turns out you don't need to know them to you know, replicate stuff you see. And then you can, you know, sort of mess around with like different sort of designs. Come on. Please. Okay. You know, you can just, you know, I like, you know, typically you have this line here to like indicate the pecs, but you don't have to do it that way. You can do it like you can have all sorts of different sort of like patterning. You could also just be wearing like a tabard, right? Like that just comes down the front, and then it's like, you know, you can have it sort of like tied off here, but then it's like, you know, whatever sort of symbol you want. 420 blaze it. I don't know. Like that.
I like Weed Night.
Yeah, Weed Night. You can do, yeah, this is what the Green Knight is about, right?
Yes. Oh, he's dank.
Yeah, he's hotboxing his armor. I don't know.
Oh my god. Genius.
Like that. So I don't know. We can keep designing armor sets if we want, or I don't know. Like it's what we're like a little over an hour in, but like
what are people feeling?
What are
do you
people
want to do
feeling?
armor? Do you want to do like critters?
Yeah, do you want to do some creature design? Do you want me to look at your art?
Put it out there.
Or just like any questions or like other examples you want me to look at and talk about?
Yeah.
Happy to. I'm here for you.
And I'm here for Nathan.
Critters. Okay, we can talk about fantasy critters again.
Critters.
So I don't know how many of y'all watched my drawing animals stream, but like you know, we can go back to line of action and just like get some animal reference, because I think,
Yeah.
like like uh like how the fantasy armor, it's rooted in understanding of historical armor and, anatomy. Drawing fantasy creatures is rooted in understanding, how animals look and behave.
Yeah.
Um, so like let's just start.
Yeah.
We'll
What
just
have you got for us?
I've got this is a great image that I've found. I'm gonna grab real quick. Karina, vamp for me while I grab this image.
Hey guys, what up? Is you good? What's this little cat in the corner?
Oh, you saw it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So let's start with a real animal,
Why is he going? Oi, 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 oi.
because he's gonna become a fantasy monster.
Dr. Meow.
Um,
Oi.
right. So we'll start with like a cat, right? You can start with any animal to make a fantasy creature.
That's always a good place to start.
Cat's a great place to start. So we're just gonna sort of look at it.
Oh, Dr. Meow.
And
I mean, I feel like this is something that you see a lot in like animation, especially in uh like the major studios like Disney and DreamWorks and stuff, is that
Disney.
if they have like a fantasy critter, they will just kind of assign it visually and behaviorally to an existing animal.
Right.
Like, for example, How to Tame Your Dragon is kind of cat-like. Like
Definitely.
the guy toothless.
Toothless.
Yeah. Very much like a cat, even though very not a cat.
I drew it on the same layer.
I
drew it on the same layer. Hold
so
on.
yeah, when in doubt.
So we've got this sort of cat, and then I guess sort of similar to, we can make like sort of cat stick dude almost, like we can have this sort of, we've got like the spine, we've got like
How to Train Your Dragon was based on a panther, which is a cat.
panther is a cat, yeah.
It's just a bigger cat.
So we've got this sort of like animal base. And then sort of similar to the way the armor works, we can just sort of add on to it and make it more monstrous. So, oftentimes you'll combine animals. We can get to that in a sec, but like even just we take the ears, for example, and let's make them bigger. Like a good way to like make something monstrous is to just like exaggerate the features,
Yeah.
right? Like, you make it give it sort of an angrier face.
I am no longer Dr. Meow. I want the power. Oi, 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 oi.
Teeths. And yeah, we can make it again like stickman become thickman. We can make this, get some real big,
Ooh,
right?
yeah.
Like
big meaty claws.
claws on it. We're still sort of we're using this animal base, but like we're taking what we know about this animal and we're just accentuating bits. Cats have claws.
Yeah.
What if claw were bigger?
Yeah.
What if what if tail had, spike at the end?
Yeah.
What if horns? right? Like,
I love putting horns on just any animal.
and like that, you know, we started from like a place of familiarity of just like, you know, drawn a
Yeah.
animal, and now this isn't a cat you'd find in real life. But
Yeah.
and again, you can go even crazier, right? Like, one thing I think, you know, sort of the opposite of big eyes make things cute, little eyes make things scary.
Yeah.
Multiple eyes make
Oh
things scary.
shit.
If you don't give things
Yeah.
pupils, that makes them
Is
scary.
this not just Americana folklore,
Right?
which is fantasy?
And then you can
Some
do,
person down south went, I thought a rabbit had horns and it spooked me.
yeah,
And now jackalopes are a thing forever.
you can take features from other animals and add it in. Like, maybe I give it a bat's nose and like bat ears,
Yeah. Ah.
right? Like,
Oh,
that's
now
that changes
this
it.
is a critter.
You can give it wings, right?
It's a
Now it's a
critter.
critter.
This is a full-blown critter.
We've made a critter live on stream. I don't know what it's called. I don't know what this critter's name is.
This is such an American Gothic critter.
Yeah, right? Like, it's a house cat. What something happened to it.
Yeah.
House cat saw a vampire movie once and was like, "This is me
It's not a phase, Dad.
now." Right? Like, you know, we can really go sort of crazy with the mouth if
Yeah.
we want, right? Like, we can
Yeah, I
we
love
can have
it.
there aren't any rules anymore because it's fantasy, right? Like,
Feature design is like so fun.
we have this base, and it's like, okay, now the head goes like this now,
Yeah.
and it's got just like teeths, right? Like, this is, we're just having fun. We're just making it up. You know, I don't know. Is this helpful? Like, I'm not really describing like any sort of process. I'm just sort of adding shapes. But like, this is the sort of thing you can do if you look at examples of fantasy creatures. You look at examples of real creatures, and you just sort of like, what if we combined, you know,
Yeah.
make the mouth bigger, make the eyes smaller, give it some extras,
Yeah, give it some wings.
give it some wings, give it some horns, add some bits, and you got a stew going. I like this guy.
I do too. This is cute.
I'm happy
What
with
a
my return. He's a
rascal.
little rascal. We have no idea how big he is. What if he was huge?
Then he's a big rascal.
Oh no.
Oh no. I was just T-posing and this guy flew up to me. No.
Yeah, are there questions? Did I go too fast? Did that make sense? Like, what I was doing, why I was doing it? Give him a broken horn? Sure. Yeah, again, like, you can
do anything.
back to that list of stuff to consider. What are we saying about this character? You know,
yeah.
Broken horn, broken tooth. Like, this character's been in some scrapes, maybe some scars. Right? Like, this rascal gets into trouble. We can distress the wings if we want. That's something fun I like to do often, is just like distress the wings.
It do look very cool.
It's just like, just add some spikies to the inside of the wings, and all of a sudden it gives your character
creature design is just especially fun because it truly is just whatever the heck you want. I mean, I think that's why like superstition and cryptids is so fun, because it's literally just someone had an idea and everyone was like, yeah,
why not?
Yeah,
put an eagle on that tiger.
Yeah,
put an eagle on that lion, but make it a tiger.
And you know, that's another thing that's worth researching. What's wrong with researching some local folklore and cryptids? They're fun. I like them.
Could you?
And in a lot of ways, those things also reflect the culture.
For sure, definitely, yeah. Like you said, this feels very like American folklore
This is
creature.
very like Jersey Devil.
Yeah.
Kind of
Someone
shenanigan.
ZD Home asked me to shrink the head, which I think is a fun idea as well. Like that can make it, because again, big eyes cute, big head cute. Maybe it gets less cute. Maybe it gets a bit more scary. The head's
because then that means the body is hulking.
Yeah.
And strong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can give it sort of that sort of thing where like there's a tuft of hair on the back. Like, you know, when dogs are serious
small,
about,
because you got a lot of mass.
Yeah, big
which
sort
means
of
you're strong and imposing.
Yeah, that definitely makes it a little bit spookier.
Yeah, it does make it look bigger.
Yeah. That was fun. Oh man, I'm glad that worked.
This is such a rascal that you find in the forest when you like don't listen to your parents.
Gotta listen to your parents, or you'll end up with this rascal.
Yeah, if you're ever strapped for ideas, it's always fun to look up, just like, you know, different folklore creatures. I've been doing, or not been doing, but like I didn't grow up with this stuff, so every now and then I go back to like Filipino folklore, and it's kind of interesting because
definitely
a lot of them have to do with relationships or giving birth.
Yes,
or not a lot of them, but there's like multiple ones.
Yeah, we did when we
and
did that
I feel like that
with,
reflects on, you know, cultural anxiety, society anxieties.
Right. Yeah, the stuff that you tell stories about have to do with like what's going on in the society when that story was written. Like a lot of German folklores just have to do with like disobeying your parents, being naughty,
being a naughty little child.
Being a naughty little child, you'll end up being eaten by like a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when we did a folklore episode of like Asian folklore with Sapphire from Something Scary. I don't know if she's still with Something Scary, but and like a lot of those had to do with like birth and relationships and stuff, and it's like that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool. I gave it a scorpion's tail because
I do like that.
Because why not? And yeah, just to break down, like just some shortcuts. Like wing, like dragon wing it's basically like a bat wing, but like the way I think about it is like line. I oftentimes it's, you know, either curved line or you can do like this and then spike, line, and then connect. And that's like a very basic sort of wing shape that I think can get you far. And then of course you can add more little spokes if you want, but like
little fingies
or whatever you want to call them. But I think just like the most basic version is just like this sort of like swoop up, swoop down, and then connect, and then you have like whatever guy.
Wow. Oh, well, I got a wing.
I got two of them. Wow.
Whoa. Who is he? I love it. He's a
little guy.
Little wangus.
He is a little wangus. Sorry for drawing a wangus. He's a wangus with two wangs.
Two wangs.
Oh God.
Sorry.
Oh no! I did it. That was me.
TGIF.
Like that.
This is not a Digimon. This is an early Neopet before they hired an artist.
Spikes. A lot of different ways to draw spikes. You can draw like sort of thick spike like this. You can draw like sort of a thin spike like this. Just like straight on versus like curved.
What's its function in the world that you're building?
Is it like an attack? Is it something that's used to attack, or defend? You know, is this like a armor plating type spike that like goes into like a, you know, like an armor plate sort of thing? You can think about sort of the function. Don't hurt me. You know, like, yeah, you get just sort of like playing around with that sort of thing. You know, is this like a front spike, like a tusk almost? You know, like,
I love these.
right? Like
Whatever these are.
You can start with a base animal. You can start with like a feature. There are a lot of different routes you can take. You know, if it's just like a vibe, you can go also, of course, like elements, right? Like if we go back to our original kitty shape,
Dr. Meow.
Dr. Meow, and it's like, what if it's just like fire cat? Right? Like that's a different, you know, it's not maybe as scary, but like, you know, what if we go this route? You know, and we do sort of fiery. This is sort of a Pokemon maybe. But
yeah,
you know, there's like lots of different ways you can.
I think this also comes back to like, you know, the vibe and the mode, because, right, you know, if you're making something like, you know, this little fire cat or like Toothless or something where it's very similar to something that we are already familiar with, like in the real world, that is kind of more inviting to people. Like they sympathize with that more. Where if it's something like really out there and spooky and weird, that has a lot more like horror to it, and because it, you know, it has like that uncanny effect of like, this isn't quite like anything I'm familiar with, so it's weirding me out and making me scared on a primal level.
Yes.
So you know, if you want people to feel comfortable in this setting, then fill it with things that are, you know, more fantastical but also have like a more, you know, it's more familiar to them, where if right, you want them to feel very like on edge, then put things that are really wild and weird.
I didn't have time. I couldn't find like one perfect example for this, but like a great example of really creative character and creature design is the webtoons comic Elfin Warrior that Andy Stewart and Victor Rosas make. Victor's characters are so creative and unique. I might just try and pull.
Yeah, you did it with She-Ra. Go on.
Yeah, let me see if I can just grab like for example, a for example.
Yeah.
Here we go. Like this is a great shot right here. This is in the very first one. It's going to show up in the freaking, you'll see a little version of it
yeah,
because that's the way screen grab works. But I just think Victor is so good at design. And again, like his designs aren't overly complicated, but they're just like very, very creative. Any Dimension 20 fans will recognize Victor's art because he did the character art for the first Fantasy High. So for example, just like you've got this like right? Like this is what a fun, you know? Like look at all these great shapes. Look at all these interesting choices being made, right? Like his eyes are mouths. He's got horns, he's got this little like sort of ear, and then you've got this very sort of generic, but still like a lot of characterization in this. You know, he's got the skull clip on his cloak. He's got the little hairs coming off. Like this is sort of a weathered character.
He's got a beard.
He's got a beard. And then this guy, you know, he's got like the bartender. He's doing like the typical bartender thing, but his face is a nightmare.
Yeah.
There's another character in the in this first one. Sort of similar idea.
Yeah. And this goes back to the point I was making, where it's just like, is it scary that the eyes are mouths? Yes. But this is also, it's also just like so recognizably a bartender that it kind of circles back to being haha funny.
Right.
Like the style is already very like fun and stuff. So, you know, you're not like spooked by it. You're just like, ha, how odd.
How odd. It's giving you a little bit of a handhold. This is several panels together. I couldn't quite grab them. This is, again, Webtoon is sort of more optimized for reading on mobile, but
yeah,
I guess I could just grab it that way. Yeah, this guy I really like. You know, you see him this way is at first, and then he turns and he's got like all of these legs and he scurries away. I don't know. I just if you want inspiration for like really creative fantasy character designs that aren't like restricted by typical sort of D&D Tolkien constraints, I think Elfin Warrior is a really good. It's also just like a really good story. I'm way behind on it, but when I did read it, it was the story itself was really really fun, and the characters are really good.
Jamie has linked it in chat.
All right, I'll take the mouth eyes off screen. Put something fun on screen. This guy.
Twangy.
This is Twangy.
Yeah. There he goes. That's how he moves. Just I did see, what about designing armor sets based off a character, like the armor episode you did before? How did you decide what traits to use?
I mean, I was sort of in a panic.
Yeah, I was also in a panic. Silly question. I just pasted Raymond's face all over a body.
Yeah, like I was like Luigi, like I looked up specifically Luigi's mansion. He has his like mouth open, like, and I was like, what if the mouth was where the head was? And then we just, you know, this is,
yeah, I wish my head were in Luigi's mouth.
This was sort of
so he could protect me.
Yeah, this is sort of what I did for that. I think if I were to do it again, I might try and do a more, because Luigi's green, I might do like a more Green Knight inspired.
Ooh.
You know, Luigi, which again, the Green Knight has this like this cool thing. So, you know, I'd probably keep the mustache aesthetic somewhere in it, like maybe the mustache here.
Mustache pauldron
into cloak, and then you know you've got this, you know, like and then maybe this is like a hood sort of situation, but it has the like hat brim, and then I don't know, like I don't know that I did it the best I could have on the spot, which is sort of like the constant thing with drawing for content, where you just have to.
Nice.
I think it turned out okay. You know, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever made. Yeah. But yeah, like if I had more time to like ideate on it, you know, maybe it would have looked a little different. Because you know, I got stuck. I wanted to give it like a brim, but like a lot of armor doesn't really have a brim. But like it, you know, you can have this sort of thing. Now it's sort of looking like Darth Vader.
Yeah, maybe it's Darth Vader.
And I wanted the suspenders as well, and so maybe, you know, maybe one of these like sort of big sort of like dipey looking armor bits for the crotch. And then, you can have just sort of like army. But I don't know. Like it's tricky. That's a very specific challenge that it really sort of depends. Luigi has like the gloves, so I tried to give him sort of like thick gauntlet sort of things for the gloves.
Oh.
I don't know. Like this is a different sort of take on it, but again, you're sort of getting Luigi from it. What could we do for the helmet? Like if this is mustache, like we want to indicate
head is nose.
Head is nose. Head seems to be nose. So then
eyes.
Yeah, how do we do that? Like
it's Luigi looking up.
Yeah. I mean, we could
Hmm.
skip nose and just go straight to like hat, right? And just do like a
Yeah.
sort of this, maybe like a real sort of thick armor with like this sort of thing, and like
Yeah.
the L shape here. I don't know. It's tricky. You have to just decide what elements of armor you want to focus on and what elements of the character you want to focus on. Like, yeah, I with Luigi, I was like, he has a mustache. Let's put the mustache somewhere. I put it on top of his head and sort of had to reverse engineer. Oh no, I drew it on a layer. I'm so bad at layers.
Not the layer.
Not stick, dude.
I have a question from Dubis.
What's up?
What do you tend to think about over-cluttered or complex armor? When is it too much, in your opinion?
I don't know. Because again, like a lot of the pieces we looked at were very detailed, and for me, it's too much when I don't feel like drawing it anymore. It's like if I sketch it out and I go, oh, I have to ink all those lines.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
I feel like it depends on, what the context is.
Right. Like, what is it? If this is a character design for like a character you're putting in like a comic book or a web comic, or if it's a character you're going to have to draw multiple times, you don't necessarily want it to be super complicated. If it's a one-off like commission and you're just trying to like flex, then go as complicated as you want,
And I guess it also comes back to like the world in which it lives, because like a lot of people kind of get on Final Fantasy so and so or like Kingdom Hearts for being like weirdly over designed, but it fits into that setting.
If everything's over designed, then we're all just designed.
It'd look weird if it wasn't.
Right. Yeah, and there's definitely I think for it, like that's specifically for like a video game. If it's just like a piece of art you're working on, right? Like how big is the character in the piece? If it's a whole scene, you don't necessarily want to have like so much intricate detailing on your character. However, like going back to like let's go back to this. So like this is a whole scene, right? Like the dragon is taking up like a solid half of the scene. But like we've got plenty of detailing on these characters, right? And it works. It works in this context because it's like it's different on each one, right? This very ornate, detailed armor contrasts really well with this very simple. Like this is just green. This is just a green shape with a sword sticking out. And then this type of detailing is different from this detailing. This is like a lot of gemstones and like small sort of runic shapes versus these very sort of naturalistic lines and curves, and this sort of like, I don't know, branches. It looks like, this elven sort of Celtic inspired look. And yeah, like it works in this context. I don't think I'd personally ever spend this much time on a piece in my current situation. The sort of level of art that I'm working on is definitely more simplified, and so
Yeah.
I'm not rendering. This also has to do with like execution, like the rendering, the colors, like the fact that like the background, everything is painted. You can see all the scales on this dragon. Like this was a piece that took a fair amount of time to make, and like everything is intentional, and like so yeah, it's like it's detailed, but it's not over detailed because everything is thought out, right? Like I imagine the artist took the time to consider how detailed the piece would be when like choosing the subject matter and like planning it out and all that. And yeah, so it really it varies. There's no like one size fits all for the amount of design and detailing that goes into a character. It really depends on, does it work in the piece that you're making? What is the piece you're making? What's it for?
Yeah.
This is a piece that's on a dungeon master's screen. Like this is something that like the players are going to be looking at for hours while they're playing. When they zone out. After 4-5 hours of gameplay, this is just like a great piece. There's something different. The eye. There are lots of different places the eye can fall. Like you're just thinking about what spell you're gonna cast next, what you're gonna do. Like it's a great piece. I feel like to just inspire the imagination. Be like, oh yeah, my character can do this cool thing. Like I don't know. I think it works really well for specifically that. You're playing a game, you're thinking about fantasy stuff. It's just a bunch of different looking characters all doing cool stuff, fighting a big monster. There's a lot of details, and it works. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that in terms of like over design, you can kind of also, in your own work, know when you're like taking it too far.
Right.
Especially with character design, because sometimes it's easy to overwork a piece, but if you're like putting a character to be put into a setting and that character has a million bits and bobs and nothing else really does, then
Yeah, you want it to
you
feel
feel
like
it in your bones.
yeah. I think you can trust your judgment. You'll look at it and be like, oh, that maybe was too much.
Yeah.
It can help to zoom out also. Like I think these, even if we make this smaller, I think these characters are still pretty readable. Like they all have unique silhouettes.
Yeah.
You're losing some of the detailing on this, but like there's enough big bits that like
Yeah. And a lot of that is just, art foundational stuff rather than just like fantasy.
Yeah, this isn't specific to
shenanigans.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yes.
Can we have one magic thing? Flame, water, crystal. Like in the on dude. Make like a that's just dude. This is stick dude. Let's see. Could do like a crystal armor. Could have him be like a crystal mage type. Like a big high mage's collar, and then like some crystalline bits. Crystals are cool because they're just angles. They're just straight lines, and you can always just like I love adding floaty bits to armor too. You just sort of add, and you just sort of decide how crystalline you want it to be. I think this is a.
I like drawing rocks and crystals. It's so fun.
It is fun.
You just do it. You just
do
put
it.
lines down.
Right? Like he's got like his cloak, but then like he's got the crystals glowing off of it, growing off of it, and then maybe some
And
like,
glowing.
and glowing. Yeah, they are glowing. Little floaty bits. Like I don't know. We're just trying stuff. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
sort of a crystal gauntlet here, maybe.
Crystal armor would look actually so fucking cool.
Yeah.
IRL.
We can just give him like a. No, we don't have to think too much on it. Some little like mage shoes. Maybe he's got like one sort of like cloaked, and this is a spell cast in hand. It's like he's summoning his crystal here, like this. He's got this like floating, and then this one, yeah, maybe this one he's like sort of summoned like a crystalline like super arm over here. He's using this crystal to like give him his magic powers. He's got like a crystal helmet, or like just like some crystal shards around his face.
Very cool.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a crystal guy.
Crystal guy.
Crystal mage.
Crystal mage.
Just sort of jagged shapes, try and make. And again, that's an example of just like, you want to draw some crystals, look up some crystals. There are all sorts of different sort of crystalline ways to draw crystals. This is very, very quick, rough and ready example, but
it looks great.
This is Raz. Raz Frostwhisper from Warcraft. Or did you mean to write Rad? S is right next to D. There's a character named Raz Frostwhisper who, I don't think he looks like this, but he's a mage in Warcraft.
There you go.
In Hearthstone, that is. But yeah. I don't know. You again, like, I think it's good practice to just like sketch out ideas and make them as over designed as you want, and then try again and maybe pare it down a little. Take the bits that you liked, see if you can't convey the same information with less. I think trying to convey information with less is a good just sort of practice in general with drawing, because it'll save you time and energy.
Yeah,
in the long
like
run.
You can keep going if that's your style, but
yeah,
especially when it comes to like character design and just like visual storytelling, visual communication through those elements to when you're working in like a fantasy world, and so much of it ideally would be able to be like learned through just looking at the characters and the setting and stuff. You don't want to put too much out there all the time.
right. Sort of like a magical aura.
Yes.
You do these wigglies to sort of contrast with the sort of crystal sharpness. Do these sort of wigglies. This is my shorthand for like magical energy. Wigglies.
Yeah.
But of course you can do, maybe it's more like, lightning-y, and that's again goes back to being sort of lightning, sort of like a cross between like jagged and wiggly. Again, you can look up examples of cool, like, way magic is. We can go back to. She's got like wiggly
Hey.
magic and lightning magic. She's casting like 2 spells or something.
Wiggly magic.
Wiggly magic. I love
You
wiggly
know the
magic.
one.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Got like blue wiggly magic. You got red wiggly magic. You got blue spiky magic. Again, like, you can look up footage of lightning storms.
Yeah.
Or
in some ways, magic does exist.
Ooh. Magic is all around us.
Oh my goodness, just like Christmas.
It's basically like Christmas. Christmas is the most powerful magic. That's not true. Chronomancy is the most powerful magic. But Christmas is a close second.
Sure. Got any other questions?
Any other cues? We got another 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Happy to continue answering your cues.
With some A's.
Mm-hmm. Feeling good, though. I was a little worried coming into this one.
Oh, you know things, Nathan. You're knowledgeable.
I try to be from time to time. We can look at all our guys again.
Yeah, look at these guys.
We did all this today. Oh yeah, this guy. Work more on this Luigi. How would we do it?
This is definitely a great base.
Yeah, I think it's good.
I love the dipey overalls.
Yeah, I think
that's
that
fun
too. Yeah, like the Green Knight, he's got like, I think maybe we want like sort of this chainmail hood look.
Yeah.
Perhaps could be good here.
Yeah.
And then maybe sort of like one of these.
Oh.
Yeah, like
shape of an L on his forehead.
Like the shape of an L on his forehead. It could be like very minimalist. You know, maybe we don't need the hat to indicate that it's Luigi.
Do you want to bring it home with one last broad topic?
We can do the sort of Green Knight, sort of. Maybe it's a bunch of L's. So many L's.
A. We
What?
got one broad topic that was asked about.
Okay.
Do you wanna?
What is it?
Fantasy locations. You got any takes?
Oh man. That was not something I was prepared for, but like again, like, let's go back. Fantasy can be anything.
Yeah. So, I feel like so many things, including like you know, the world that they live in is just derived from like our own world. That's literally a mountain. Those exist. So yeah, it just kind of depends on what you're going for, maybe, and then you can just do whatever.
Yeah, I think you know, it has to do with geography, ecology. You know, you if you're building a fantasy world, like in you know, for a story, for a campaign, for just like the background of a single piece of art, right? Like you I guess you sort of just want to think about like the terrain, how, you know, wild versus settled is it, what the climate is like. Is it mountainous? Is it, you know, here we've got what appears to be sort of a jungle. There's a coastline, there's some jungle, there's a volcano. You know, these are all things that exist in real life. And I think much like making fantasy creatures, like you can exaggerate, right? Like you can make a volcano that is much bigger than any volcano in real life and have that be sort
Yeah.
of a focal point of your campaign. Lord of the Rings, like that's, there a big volcano. That's not, it's nothing. It's not the most unique creative idea, but it works. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, big volcano. We're trying to get to the big volcano. There's a big scary fireman who lives in the big volcano, and we've got to stop him.
Yeah, I feel
Or
like with setting, it's either very incidental because it's just like, well, we're on this planet, so there's trees outside, there's trees in my fantasy world. It's not so, it's the setting, or it can be all about the setting. God forbid, the example I thought up is heckin' Avatar, the blue cat people movie.
sure, yeah,
There's so much like setting building in Avatar, and a lot of it isn't super integral to the story, but it makes sense in like the grand lore of the Avatar world.
right.
Like, it's this very kind of familiar setting, and it's just, it's like a tree world, but they fly a lot. There's a lot of bioluminescent plants and stuff.
Everything
And
can
those
plug
all,
in. They can all
yeah.
jack in and mind link
And
with stuff.
but
Right. Yeah. It
but
can.
yeah,
Yeah.
and all of that ends up having something to do with like the way the society works,
Right.
etc. So I guess it kind of just depends on how much world building you
Yeah.
have in mind for like, this character is part of this society. How does the society interact with the world? How do they affect each other,
Yeah.
etc.?
They're
That's a
different.
lot of writing stuff.
Yeah. Different levels, levers, levels, different levels you can pull. Again, make something bigger, make something scarier. Add, again, make it more jagged, more
Make it glow.
change the color,
Yeah.
make it float, change
Yeah.
gravity. There can be
But then
a
how
part,
does
a
that
part
affect
of the, yeah, and how does that affect
the world?
and then each time, if this is true, what else is true? That classic improv. If there's like a magical rift in the world that's affecting gravity, like there's just a bunch of floating rocks in the sky in this part of the world, what does that mean for that part of the world? Is like, do people live on these floating rocks? Have they developed like an elaborate system of like airships that get them from rocks to rocks?
Yeah.
Are there new predators that stalk these flying creatures that live amongst the floating rocks? And like, again, like you just take anything you can find in nature, change one thing about it, and then extrapolate how changing that one thing would affect a bunch of the other things.
Yeah.
I think is a good way to think about it.
Because that's definitely a lot more like conceptual, rather than just like, drawing a landscape.
Right.
It's a lot more of just like, well, in this world, trees are 3 times bigger, and that affects it in this way. So then you're just drawing trees.
You draw the big trees,
but they're big.
The trees
and
are
then
big, and you draw like
the
a little
characters are changed because of the effect that has on the world.
Right.
And there's a lot of shade.
Yeah, lots of shade.
But you can't grow anything under the big trees.
Yeah.
So how does that affect the society that's
to become
cropped up there?
They live.
Yeah.
Do they live in the trees, or
Yeah.
are the big trees a place that people don't go because that's dangerous, and there are big creatures that live in the big trees?
Yeah.
Right. Like, there's lots of different ways you can do it. Are the big trees scary? Or are they friendly?
Yeah,
like that. It can be anything. The nice thing is there's not really a wrong answer. It's just
no rules,
whether it works for the piece or the story you're trying
to
tell.
Ultimately, the only rules are your understanding of how things work.
Yeah.
And even that can be wrong or
Yeah,
changed.
you can make it up anytime. Yeah. I go back. There's this scene in The Simpsons where Lucy Lawless is as Xena, like giving a talk at doing a Q&A at a convention, and someone like asks her about like an inconsistency in an episode, and her response is, "Anytime you notice something like that, a wizard did it." And that can be the answer for any
Yeah.
inconsistency in a fantasy world is a wizard did it.
If it's not deeply rooted in reality,
Yeah.
who's to say?
But yeah, I think it's like the most important thing is to have fun with it, you know? Like what's great
Yeah.
about fantasy is that it's not real.
Yeah.
And so the stuff that you make up can be whatever you want, and you can make it as goofy as you want. You can make it as like heavy and gritty as you want. You can make it as yuck as you want. You can make it as whimsical, as lighthearted, as it's great. It's a playground for your imagination, and I love going there. I love playing games there. I love making art in that style, and I hope that you do too. And yeah, definitely. Again, feel free to look up any of the artists that whose work I referenced in this video. They're all great.
Perhaps we can drop that in the Discord channel.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Whoever's willing.
And yeah.
Yeah.
Have fun with your drawings. And fantasy can be anything.
Fantasy, like gamers. Can be anything. Yay, Nathan.
Yeah.
Good job. Everyone tell Nathan what a good job you did.
Shower me with, this is my fantasy, being showered with praise. Yeah.
That was great.
Cool. Well then, I guess that's it. Thank you to everyone who is here live.
Yeah.
Thank you for being patrons at this tier. We really appreciate your support. If you're watching the VOD later, consider supporting us at this tier on Patreon.
You could have been watching this a month earlier.
You could have been asking your questions live. Again, if you sign up at any tier, you get access to the Discord, which is where we announce what that month's draw class will be.
Yeah.
So, if you want to get in there, you don't think you can maintain the draw class tier for multiple months, that's totally understandable. But if you want to get in there, and then you see, ooh, this month Julia is teaching.
Yeah, because it is Julia next
how
month.
to do the font rune or whatever. Not, maybe, who knows? But you see a topic that you really want to be there live for. You can bump up your tier, get in live for that month. Obviously, everyone I'm talking to live right now already knows this, but figured for the VOD, throw that in at the end. Encourage people to support us on Patreon. We really do appreciate your support. It makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. And that's it. We're sorry.